Hey, look, we're back. And this time we're back looking at the green cards. So, I think green in this set's going to be pretty good, just based on the few cards I've seen so far. But let's go over them together. First off, we have Arasta of the Endless Web. She is a 4 mana. Cool art, by the way. She is a 4 mana, 2 colorless, 2 green, 3/5. She has reach. She's a legendary enchantment creature spider. Whenever an opponent casts an instance or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 spider creature token with reach. I think in limited this is gonna be pretty good. This is a pretty good card just for the fact that has the potential to create more creatures, and it might be, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this card seeing play in sideboards in standard. I don't think this is strong enough to see it play in eternal formats. You can probably make a commander card around this kind of card, but in standard, I can only see this seeing play as a sideboard card to help deal with flash decks or decks that like to play on your turn. So that's always good. In limited, I'd give her probably like a B, potentially. Your opponent's obviously gonna be able to play around. They're not gonna have, if they have a deck focused around playing on your turn, they're just gonna be able to play around on their turn when it's fruitful for them, as opposed to constructed formats like standard, where you can sideboard this in against decks that are that want to play on your turn and punish them from doing that. So I give this about a B. It's a decent sized body, decent sized creature with an upside, so wouldn't heavily prioritize it, but if I'm already in green, I wouldn't mind putting this in my deck. Next, the Binding of the Titans. So I have very weird feelings about this because just let's read each of these things first. It's another saga, 2 mana, colors, and a green, and its first one is each player puts the top 3 cards of the library into the graveyard. The fact that there's something like this in green instead of black or blue is just confusing for me, but whatever. Next, exile up to 2 target cards from graveyards. For each creature card exiled this way, gain 1 life. Then return target creature or land from your graveyard to your hands. I can see this seeing play in standard if there's going to be some kind of escape deck or rummaging deck of any kinds. But beyond that, I can't see this seeing play even in limited. I would not prioritize picking this. And I've made statements before on why I don't feel good about self-mill and self-rummaging in limited, so let's just move on. Next, Chain Web Arkner? That's a weird way of spelling that, or saying that. It's a spider. It's a Chain Web Spider. It is a single green for a 1/2 with reach. When it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying an opponent controls. And then you can escape it for 5 mana and exiling 4 cards to bring it back as a 4/5, meaning it's even better at taking out bigger flying creatures. I wouldn't heavily prioritize this in a limited draft. If there is a escape deck in standard, I can see this being a good sideboard card to help hose down flyers. However, with that Kroll Harpooner already in standard, I don't see it seeing play as a sideboard to deal with flyers over Kroll Harpooner. But you never know. I wouldn't mind taking this in green. It'd probably be like a 23rd playable as opposed to the next card, which is I'm going to like sing the praises about, but it's okay. If you use it to take out on a flyer, whether it be a small flyer or a big flyer later into the game, it feels really good, but overall it's just going to be average. So I give it like a C grading. Next, Destiny Spinner. This card is amazing. It is a 2 mana, 2/3. So already it is above the curve when it comes to effectiveness with your mana. Most 2 mana creatures are 2/2s. This is a 2 mana, 2/3. And there's no downside to this. Creatures and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. So that's an upside. Yeah, that's just really, really good. Saying spells can't be countered in any... Sure, it only affects blue spells, but when your opponent has counters and they can't use them to deal with those big threats coming at you, it really hurts. And then, finally, its ability is you tap 4 mana. Target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments you control. It's still a land. I'm not sure if there's going to be... I keep forgetting that enchantment creatures are so prominent this set. When you do this, okay, if you do this with just her out, sure, you only get a 1/1. But generally, you're going to have 2 or 3 enchantments out when you do this, meaning you're going to have a 3/3 that you're able to just keep recurring back and forth to get another extra attacker to do damage. while also having the upside of your spells or your enchantment spells and creatures not being able to be countered. This card's really, really good. If you are in green, you should snatch these up as many as you want, because these are just really, really good cards. And the more of them you have, the more powerful the second ability has. So yeah, I would not feel bad taking this if there's something else in the pack. This would help me start hedging towards green if I saw it as well. So good card. Next, Dryad of the Elysian Grove. It is a 3-mana 2/4 enchantment creature, Nymph. Its abilities are, you may play an additional land on your turn. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So it's Chromatic Lantern on a creature. It's Chromatic Lantern, and what's that card that says you can play addition? There's like a green source that says you can play an additional land each turn. I can't remember its name. And you know what kind of cards I'm talking about. It's like Growth Spurt, in fact. Where you play an additional land. Or not Growth Spurt, because it says you play an additional land with Growth Spurt. It was like that 3-mana dinosaur. That 3-mana 5/5 that couldn't attack until you had the City's Blessing that said you can play an additional land. And it staples Chromatic Lanterns. Your lands can tap for all mana types. Because when it says lands you control are every basic land type, it means that your plains can now tap for a swamp, a forest, etc., because it's all basic land types. This card's really good. I wouldn't be surprised to see this card seeing play in Commander. Just being able to say that your lands can tap for all 5 colors of mana is always a good thing. So yeah. If I were to rate it in Limited though, I'd only give it about a C, maybe like a B-, because you're only going to be playing 1 to 2 colors anyway. And the stat line isn't all that great, and you really don't really care about playing additional lands each turn in Limited. Standard, it might see play in some kind of mana ramp deck. Nissa is really prominent, so who knows. Next, the first Ironian Games. It is a 3-mana saga. Its first part, you create a 1/1 human soldier token. Its second part, you put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Its third one, if you control a creature with 4 or greater power, you draw 2 cards. And its fourth one, you create a gold token. Pretty good. If you are even the one that's splashing the greens, is pretty good, because at the end of the day, if you even have one creature out, and remember, this makes a creature, so your opponent either has to clear the board, or you're going to get massive value over all the turns with this card. Drawing 2 cards is good, and just getting an additional mana period that you can spend when you need to spend it is also really good. So, pretty decent card. It's nothing to like to drive home about, or nothing to like really jump about. But if you're even in slightly in green, and you're thinking about hedging into green, this is a pretty good card to push you towards it. So I give this like a B. In Limited, I give it a B. It's not going to see play in Eternal formats. There's better versions to do all this. Next, Gift of Strength. Target creature you control, or target creature, gets +3/+3 and gains reach until end of turn. So it's giant growth with reach. Not giant growth, technically. I guess insatiable appetite without food, but giving it reach. It's a combat trick. When it does its job and you're able to block a flyer or trade up with it, it's pretty good. And other times it just kind of sits in your hand, not being able to do anything. But, this is effectively the strongest kind of removal you're to get in green, so it's not bad. I generally only take 1 or 2 of these kinds of cards, because I don't want them to just be at the point where my opponent kills all my creatures. I'm just kind of sitting here with things like this in my hand, not be able to do anything. It doesn't feel good. But those times I'm able to trade up using this do feel good. So I'll give it like a C+ probably. Next, this enchantment is crazy for Limited. Hydra's Growth. It is a 3-mana enchantment aura, 2 colorless and a green. Enchant creature. When Hydra's Growth enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on enchanted creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on enchanted creature. So this enchantment, you put it on a creature and it becomes a bomb. It says, deal with me, or I'm eventually going to become so massive that I'm going to one-shot you. Imagine putting this on a creature with trample, and it just goes from good to amazing. I wouldn't pack one, pick one this kind of card, but if I'm in green, I take every single one of these, because every single time I put one of these on one of my creatures, it says you are on a time limit. You are on a time limit before I get to critical mass and one-shot you. Great card. I'm not sure it's going to see play in Eternal formats. I think there's faster ways of putting +1/+1 counters on things and aren't as unreliable as enchantments. But in a limited, A+ card. Well, not A+ card. It's a pretty good card though. At least a B+. Next, Hyrax Tower Scout. It is a 3-mana 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, untap target creature. This is pretty good. It has a decent stat line with an upside, so not really much to say about it. I give it like C+. If you're in green, you wouldn't feel bad taking this. If you want to go into green, I wouldn't feel bad taking this. There's other better cards to take, like Hydra's Growth. But if you're looking for more playable creatures, this isn't a bad place to be. Because at the end of the day, you're getting a 3-mana 3/3 at the very least. So, yeah. Next, Elysium Carotid. It is a 2-mana 1/1, and you can tap it to create a mana of any color. Or if you control a creature with 4 or greater power, you can add 2 mana of any color instead. I think this is supposed to be a balanced version of Elysium Carotid. Back in the original Theros block, there was a very, very good mana rock creature called Elysium Carotid that was a defender, hexproof, 0/3 that tapped for mana of any color. And the fact that it was hexproof made it really, really difficult to get rid of. And it was just able to work as a perfect means of just turbo ramping decks into their bigger cards like Siege Rhino. Oh god, Siege Rhino, I hate that card. But I think it's supposed to be a balanced version of it. I don't see this taking the place of that Sylvian Druid we have, that 2/1 hexproof creature we have right now. But you never know. In limited, mana rocks are always mana rocks, so they're not bad if you want to go heavy into just bigger creatures and stuff like Arasta. So it's an okay card. I give it like a C though. Next, Inspire Awe. It is a 4-mana fog, basically. Prevent all damage that would be dealt this turn except combat damage that would be dealt by enchanted creatures or enchantment creatures. Scry 2. This card's bad. Don't play this card. Unless you are playing purely enchantments and enchantment creatures, don't bother with this card. It's a fog with a scry on it. Fogs are already pretty notoriously bad and limited, and you had to design certain decks around them to make them good. But the fact that this one says isn't universal across the board, because you're gonna have to assume your opponent's also gonna have enchantments and enchantment creatures. So this card's just really, really bad. I give this like a D. Like a D-. In fact, don't take this card. There are better playables just outright throughout the deck. Next, Kolthid's Design. It is a 6-mana sorcery. Creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is your devotion to green. It's not that great. I mean, if you're playing mono green, I wouldn't mind having one of these and using this as your big swing to win the game at the very end. But beyond that, it's just not a very good card. 6 mana just for +++ isn't all that amazing on a one-time thing, because it says you have to have a massive board first before you swing out with it. If you are playing mono green though, and you have a lot of devotion to green, this card's amazing. But you're not gonna have. But if you're not playing mono green, the power of this just falls off compared to other cards. I'd much rather play that white Pride, basically Pride of Conquerors card over this, because this says you have to be playing heavy green or mono green to be fully useful. So yeah. Next, Lonesome Chimera. It is a 3-mana 4/1 creature chimera. It enters the battlefield as a 4/1, and then it escapes for 5 mana, 4 colors and a green, exiling 3 of the cards, to escape as a 5/2. I guess it's okay. It's a pretty aggressive creature, so that's okay, but beyond that, it's not that amazing, all things considered. I guess I'd play it as a playable in green if there's something else in a pack, but I wouldn't prioritize this card over any other card, so I'd probably give it like a D+C. I guess you're going an aggressive deck in limited. This is a pretty good card to have, because it, 4/1 hurts. That's 5 attacks, your opponent's dead. But it's so easy to kill that it's kind of hurting my rating of it, Next, Mantle of the Wolf. It is a 4-mana enchantment. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +4/+4, and when it enters the graveyard from the battlefield, create 2 green wolf creature tokens. This card is amazing. It's not going to see any play in Eternal formats, but if you are in green, or even slightly in green, or even thinking about green, take this card. First off, getting +4/+4 worth of stats on a creature is godly for 4 mana. And then, even if they kill your creature, right, that just means that you get 2 wolves. So you're either going to get 4/4 of stats, or you're going to get 4/4 of stats. Sure, they could kill the enchantment or exile your creature. Actually, no, they'd have to kill exactly the enchantment, because then the enchantment, they either have to kill your creature before the enchantment gets put on it, or target the enchantment themselves. And if they're targeting the enchantment, they're not targeting the creature. This card is great. This is easily an A card. This is a pack one, pick one kind of card. I would not feel bad looking at my pack and saying, yeah, this is the card I'm going to take as my pack one, pick one. Really, really good. It's not going to see playing Eternal formats, though. Too slow. 4 mana is too slow. And a 4/4 just baseline isn't strong enough, which is kind of funny. But limited is a different space, so meh. Next, Moss Viper. It is a 1 mana 1/1 with Death Touch, aka it is a 1 mana wall. Death Touch is surprisingly good. Especially, imagine if you had this creature out and then you put Mantle of the Wolf on it. That's just a scary combo. But these kinds of cards where they're just like, I'm just like low mana death touching creature says, alright, here's my wall. Does your creature have first strike? No. Alright, then waste a burn spell on it. Oh, you can't? Well, I guess we reached an impasse. There was one of my favorite cards in MTG is like Sedge Scorpion, because it gives this long story about how there's this great hero who does all those things, slays giants and stuff, and then it says the last tagline, killed by a scorpion. And that's what this basically does. It takes all these massive creatures that would generally be threats, like this one, or this one with its lands, or even this one, it says, you can't get past me. So this is always a decent card. I wouldn't pack one, pick one this kind of card, but if you're in green, I wouldn't feel bad taking this if there's nothing else to take in the pack. So I'll give it like a C+. It's not going to play in Eternal formats, though. Next, this card right here, though. Expect to see this card not just in its standard, not just in limited, but in Eternal formats. It is a 1 mana instant. Put target enchantment on the bottom of its owner's library. This right here is miles better than Destroy and Exile. Because generally, it's not better than Exile, but it's easier to do than most Exile cards, right? Because putting a card on the bottom of your library, basically says you aren't going to see this card again. Unless you are playing a deck that lets you specifically search for cards, that card is not going to be seen in this game again. So putting these massive gods at the bottom of the library for 1 mana and forcing your opponent to go through a good 30, likely 30 cards to get it back is amazing. This is the kind of card, just by how easy it is to cast, it's going to see play in Eternal formats. This hoses enchantments. You wouldn't feel bad playing this main deck with how many enchantments and enchantment creatures there are, in limited especially. This is easily an A, because this basically says destroy target enchantment or enchantment creature. Great card, and get ready to see it. Get ready to see it in standard as well, for the people who only play standard. Next, Nessian Boar. It is a 5 mana 10/6, 3 colorless, 2 green creature boar. All creatures able to block Nessian Boar do so. Whenever Nessian Boar becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller draws a card. So it basically puts a lore on it, which is an MTG card, believe it or not. There's literally a card in the older sets called lore, where you are forced every turn to block it, but you have the upside. If you do block it, you get upsides, where you get to draw a card, right? However, it says you have to block it with all of your creatures. And if you only have tiny dinky like 1/1s and 2/2s and not enough to kill this creature, this thing is just doing a lot of damage and basically clearing the board. However, all it takes is 1 Death Toucher and this thing dies because it doesn't have any evasion. And when you block with your 1 Death Toucher, sure, he might be able to clear a decent chunk of your board, but at least you're drawing cards for it. If you are in green, though, I wouldn't feel bad taking this. I'd probably give it a B rating, because 10/6 worth of stats is still pretty good. And all you need to do is clear up the board enough before you play this big boy, and it's just going crazy. And remember, you aren't forced to attack with Nessian Boar until the board is clear enough that you're able to keep your Nessian Boar alive. And in limited, drawing 1 card over losing multiple creatures each turn, it might not be fully worth it. But, it's not bad. It's pretty good. Next, Nessian Hornbeetle. It is a 2 mana 2/2, so already it has pure upsides. It has a decent stat line already. At the beginning of your combat, On your turn, if you control a creature with 4 or greater power, put a +1/+1 counter on Nessian Hornbeetle. Oh, I like that flavor text. The first rule of politics can be learned from a lowly hornbeetle. It's wise to cultivate powerful friends. So it's basically just a beetle using a symbiotic relationship with bigger, more powerful creatures, and it shows in its art. This is a really good card, though. Even at the start, as a base stat line, a 2-mana 2/2 is already really good, and it only gets better if you have 4 power creatures, and you have creatures like Lonesome Chimera. You have creatures potentially with your Destiny Spinner. You have potentially creatures like your Nessian Boar. So you can get this to become a massive threat really fast. So yeah, decent. I wouldn't pack one pick one this, but if I'm in green and I have a decent chunk of big creatures, or even just I need more playables, I wouldn't feel bad taking this. Next, Nessian Wanderer. It is a 2-mana 1/3. Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a land from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So it's just a way of mana fixing and thinning your deck, so that's pretty good. I wouldn't heavily prioritize this kind of thing in limited, but being able to just get lands more consistently so that you're not getting flooded overall is pretty good. Again, there will be times where you're putting your sweeper or your card that you need on the bottom of your library, but most of the time if you play this on like turn 2 and then turn 3 you're playing enchantment, then turn 5 you're playing enchantment, it's just helping you thin your deck so you're able to get back to your better cards. So it's a pretty good card, all things considered. Next, if I give it a rating, I'd probably give it a C+, and it goes up to a B if you have a lot of enchantments or enchantment creatures. Next, Nexus Wardens. It is a 3-mana 1/4 reach. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 2 life. I could see this being a decent sideboard card against aggro decks in standard because it has a decent sized body, it's able to block the flyers, and on top of that, it's able to just keep churning out value and gaining you life for all your enchantments you play. So I wouldn't be surprised if I saw this as sideboard in enchantment based decks in standard. It's not going to see him play in eternal formats. Not when you have things like Corso of Crufix. But in standard, it's not that bad. I wouldn't heavily prioritize this though. Gaining life isn't all that important in limited most of the times. Again, there will be fringe cases where that gaining of life will actually save you in the long run, but most of the time you want to just have bigger, more effective bodies to just win the game outright over just gaining life. So I'll give this like a C. It's average. Next, it is our green god, Nylea, Keen-Eyed. She is a 4-mana legendary enchantment creature, god, 5/6 for 4 mana, and she isn't a creature as long as your devotion is less than 5. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less, that's really good, and then you can tap 3 mana, 2 colorless and a green, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature, put it into your hand, otherwise you may put it into your graveyard. So remember, it says you may put into your graveyard. May. If you don't want to put it into your graveyard, you can just leave it right there on top. But you have the option of putting into your graveyard if it's like, I already have like 8 lands, I don't need another one, let's thin my deck a little bit. And then you can do it again with your reveal. And the upside is because your creature spells cost less, that creature is going to be easier to cast anyway. Really good card. So far, every single god I've seen, if I were to, they're all pack one, pick one kind of cards. And with how splashable they are, they're always just immediately take this card. If you can even slightly hedge into that color, you take this card. That's been every god so far. So that's really good. Yeah. It's probably going to be playing standard too, because saying creatures cost less is always an amazing rate, period, no matter what kind of card it's on. And now someone in the comment section is going to be like, oh no, there's this one card that did that and it was trash. But, you know, more or less, if there isn't like a downside attached to it, saying creature spells cost less is generally always a good thing. Next, Nylea's Forerunner. It is a 5-mana enchantment creature, 5/3. It has trample, and other creatures you control have trample. I mean, it's okay. If you're in green, take it. I give it a C. Not really much else to say about it. Trample's okay when it does its job. Next, Nylea's Huntmaster. When Nylea's Huntmaster enters the battlefield, target creature you control gets X plus 0 until end of turn, where X is your devotion to green. So this is a big finisher, and if you're heavy in green, it just says, hey, that creature over there, block it. Block it or take a lot of damage. So if you're in green, take this card. If you're not heavily in green, you could probably dodge this. If you're heavy in green, I give this like a C+. If you're not in green, I could probably give it like a D. Next, Nylea's Intervention. It is the intervention for green. It is X green green. You choose one. Search your library for up to X land cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Or deal X twice as much damage to each creature with flying. I think in Limited, so far, this is the absolute weakest intervention we've seen. Now, before you get really pissy at me for what I said in Limited. I can already see the uses of this in other formats. In other formats where you can play a stupid amount of lands in one turn, getting all of your best lands, because remember, it doesn't say get X basic lands, it says get X lands. So getting all of those good lands all at once, and then being able to just cheat them out as best you can is dumb. But in limited, that isn't strong enough. And the second part is only useful if your opponent has a lot of flyers, on top of this being sorcery. So in limited, this is the second weakest. I can only rate this as like a C or like a C at best. But I suggest taking these cards if you plan to play in Commander and you have mana ramp decks or land decks or just internal formats where you play land decks. I also like that there is a lot of older powerful creatures like Hypergenesis art on here, and I think this is Mistcutter Hydra on this card. I think that's really cool. Next, Nix Herald. It is a 3-mana 2/3 enchantment creature, Centaur Shaman. At the beginning of your combat, on your turn, target enchanted creature or enchantment creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. This is really good because at the end of the day, at the very least, if you have no other creatures on the battlefield, this is a 3-mana 3/4 with trample because it can also target itself. And then you can also give that buff to other better enchantment creatures like your god over there if you have it. So yeah, good card. This is like a B because even by itself, I wouldn't mind taking this in other colors because again, at the end of the day, this is a 3-mana 3/4. Surely only when it's attacking, but still. Good card, good card. Next, Nyx Bloom Ancient. It is a 7-mana 5/5 enchantment creature elemental. It costs triple green and quadruple colorless, or quadruple of any color. However, it has a very interesting ability. It has trample, and if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much. So whether it be a land or a creature or whatever, if you tap it for mana, you create 3 times as much. Now, because of how that's worded, even your mana rocks, like say your Black Lotus, if you tap a Black Lotus for mana, you'd get 9 mana. I can see this seeing play in Eternal formats in decks that just love having mana of any kind, but I can't see this seeing play in Standard. And I would only take this if I'm heavy in green in Limited. I'd probably only play this if I was playing in mono green in Limited. Beyond that, I wouldn't take this. Unless it turns out this is a money rare, because then you take this for the money. And before you say, oh my god, that's not where you're supposed to play MTG, you don't pay my bills. And when you do pay my bills, then you can say things about what cards I take. Next. This card's boring. Nyxborn Colossus, 6 mana, 6/7, enchantment creature giant. It's vanilla. If you're heavy in green, take this. If you're not heavy in green, it's not worth it because having triple green to cast this is pretty difficult. Next. It's a D. Next. Omen of the Hunt. It is a 3-mana enchantment. It is the Omen of Green. It has flash. When Omen of the Hunt enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land, put it into the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle your library. So this is Green's way of mana fixing. It's not bad, especially since you can play it on your opponent's turn. It's no growth spurt, but it's not terrible either. I'd give it probably like a C+. Mana fixing is mana fixing, and it'll help you get your basics of your other colors if you're playing dual color. So, it's just all right. That's about it. It's all right. It might see play. I wouldn't be surprised seeing play in Standard though, in those land heavy decks that revolve around Nissa, because just pumping faster to your Nissa will be good. Turn 1 land, turn 2 growth spurt, turn 3 land. Well, no, you already can do that with just Maybe it's not going to see play alongside Nissa, but who knows? Well, who knows? But I think mana ramp is always mana ramp, so Next, Theros Beyond Brawler. It is a 6-mana 4/4 Centaur Warrior. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. If this was a 6-mana 5/5 or a 5-mana 4/4, I'd feel better about it. But because it's 6 mana and you only get a 4/4 out of it, even with the fight, it kind of hurts it kind of hurts how I like cards like this, fight cards, you know? It's still pretty decent, and it's removal in green, even if it's pretty expensive, but removal is removal, and that's fight is as good as you're gonna get in these formats. I guess if you have Niley out and then you cast this for 5 mana, that feels far better. But when we had Affectionate Beast, or that Affectionate Beast from War of the Spark, that was the exact same stat line, but it only cost 5 mana, it felt better. And it was easily splashable because it wasn't double green, it was just a single green and 4 mana. That's why I felt better about that card. If you're heavy in green, I take this, but I only give it a C+, bumping it up to maybe a B- if you're in green. Next. Plummet, destroy target flying creature. It's been printed a million times. Take it if you have nothing else to take in the pack. Only have it. I wouldn't put this main board. I'm not seeing all that many flyers this set, but put this in the sideboard, and then if your opponent has a flyer, you put this in. It's an average card. When it does its job, it feels really good, and other times it just sits in your hand doing literally nothing. So, average. Next. Relentless Pursuit. It is a 3 mana sorcery, 2 colors and a green. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a creature and or land from among them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. Now, because of how this is worded, you look at the top 4 cards and you can put a creature and a land into your hand. Because it says and or. You get to put 2 things in, and the rest go into your graveyard. This is still pretty good though. You get to look at 4 cards deep, and you get to take more often than not, you're going to get 2 things. There will be times where you only get 1, and sometimes where you get 0, but generally you're going to get 2 useful things, and it just feels really good to just filter your library even faster and better than that, you know? So, yeah. I give it like a average score, like a C. Nothing else to say about it. Next. Renata. Did I say that right? Renata? Call to the Hunt. She is the demigod for green. She's 4 mana, 2 colorless, and 2 green for a creature whose power is equal to the devotion to green and a toughness of 3. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. If you're heavy in green, or even slightly starting to hedge towards green, I wouldn't mind playing this, because getting an extra +1/+1 counters on your creatures for free is just an amazing rate. Beyond that, not too much to say about her. I think the other gods or other demigods are probably a little bit better in certain regards, but she's not terrible. Next, Return to Nature. A colorless and a green. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or exile target from your graveyard. Choose 1. This card's going to be amazing in limited. I would not mind having 1 or 2 of these in just main board, more so than any other set, because look at all, remember, it says destroy target enchantment. Look at how many enchantment creatures there are. Sure, you can't hit the gods, but, you know, you can hit their enchantment creatures with it. And at the very least, if chances are if they're not playing enchantment creatures, they're likely playing Escape. And this one works to deal with enchantment creatures or Escape. It's a modal card that'll be really useful just because the set is printed in. So this is easily a B card. Take as many of these as you can. And if you can't, if you are thinking about going green, this is going to help you push you towards green. Don't feel bad about playing these main board this set. Other sets, not so much, but this set, great. Next. Cetesian Champion. She is a 3 mana 1/3 Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on the champion and draw a card. This is really good. Just really, really good. You get her out turn 3. You have so many other enchantments, creatures, and just enchantments in general to play, and she becomes a massive threat that also gives you card advantage. Yes, please. She kind of reminds me of Edelana Blossom, who there was a card back in Theros block. It was a 2 mana, it was a 4 mana 2/2 that just said when that had Constellation, and when another enchantment entered the battlefield, you drew a card. This does that for 1 less mana on top of making herself bigger. Yo, this is gonna be really good. The only downside is that she doesn't count as an enchantment, unlike Edelana Blossom, which was an enchantment and triggered off itself. But, you know, like, you're going to be playing a lot of enchantments around there. And if you even play 2 or 3 enchantments and have this on the board, it feels really good. So, yeah, easily a really good card. Easy A for a card, because you're going to have enchantments in this limited. And don't be surprised if you see a standard deck built with her in there somewhere based around enchantments and stuff. Next, Citizen Petitioner. She is a 3 mana colorless green for a 2/2, and when she enters the battlefield, gain life equal to your devotion to green. There was a card like this in the Theros original Theros block that did something like this, and I think for the same mana cost, but it was like a 2/3, maybe a 2/4. If there's a mono green deck or a green base deck, don't be surprised to see cards like this sideboard to deal with aggro. If you're heavy in green yourself and limited, take this card just because decent sized body, it won't be too hard to cast, and gaining life on top of having a creature out doesn't feel terrible. Next, Citizen Skirmisher. She is a 2 mana 2/1. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, the Skirmisher gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If you have a lot of constellations, this card or enchantments, this card's really good. Beyond that, it's just average. So, a 2 mana 2/1 at the very least is still a 2 mana 2/1, so it's average. Next, Citizen Training. 2 mana enchantment. Enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and trample. So it's like Rancor attached to another. Well, it's not like Rancor because Rancor also buffs. Because Rancor gives gives buffs by 2. Fun fact: Rancor was supposed to be 2 mana, not 1 mana. Okay, let me change that. Rancor, it's what Rancor should have been, but less power, and you draw a card instead of being 2/0. I said that so poorly. This card's okay. This card's pretty good actually, because even if you're only slightly in green, the fact that giving your creature trample on top of drawing a card is good. Yeah, and because of the way it's worded, even if they kill your creature and stop you from the enchantment attaching to the creature, you're still gonna draw a card because the card enters the battlefield. Next, Skola Grove Dancer. It is a 2 mana 2/2. Whenever a land is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you gain a life. You tap 2 and a green to put the top card of your library into your graveyard. I've said my statements about how I feel when it comes to cards that self-mill. At the end of the day, though, it is a 2 mana 2/2 with upside, so it's just average. Next, Voracious Typhon. It is a snake beast, a 4 mana 4/4, and it escapes for 7 mana and exiling 4 of the cards as a 7/7. If you're pretty deep into green, take this card, and yeah, that's about it. A 4 mana 4/4 is still a good rate, so I'd give it like a C+. Next, Warbriar's Blessing. Enchantment Aura. Enchant creature you control. When Briar's Blessing enters the battlefield, enchanted creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Enchanted creatures +0/+2. I'd much rather it raised attack. If this said +1/+1, I'd give it a far higher rating, but the fact that it doesn't raise power means you can only trade even. I guess technically you're not trading even because you do buff your toughness, but I'd much rather this card said +1/+1 instead of +0/+2, you know? Next, Wolf Willow Haven. It is a 2 mana enchantment, and you can enchant land. When enchanted land is tapped for mana, you tap it for an additional mana. So you tap it for this 2 mana. It's mana ramp. And you can tap a land for 2 mana instead of 1, which is really good. Actually, because it's only you tap for another green, it's not as amazing as it could be, but it's still okay, you know? Yeah, it's okay. I guess it does have the upside that you can sacrifice this into the late game and you get a 5/5, but it's not that amazing. If it said taps for any color, it'd be better. But the fact that you said you can only play this when you're really playing green kind of hurts its viability. But I guess at the end of the day, mana ramp is mana ramp. I'll only give it a C though, because it's so restrictive on the color it gives. Next, then you have the pretty versions of the God cards, and next you have the Iron Scale Hydra. I'm not sure if these cards are going to appear in packs, but if this one does, this is a pack 1 pick 1 A+ card. Here's why. First off, it's a 5 mana 5/5, 3 colorless, 2 green. If a creature would deal damage to Iron Scale Hydra, prevent that damage and put a +1/+1 counter on Iron Scale Hydra. This card says you have to kill me with a kill spell. You can't kill me with Death Touch. You have to either kill me or exile me, because I'm going to get bigger whether you want me to or not. This thing more or less has indestructible. or it doesn't have indestructible. It has prevent combat damage, which it does have prevent combat damage. This is an absolute bomb. This is an A+ bomb. That this is the kind of card that you will immediately pick, because if your opponent's not playing black or doesn't have ways to kill straight up creatures, this card is going to scale out of control. And then if you put something like Citizen Training on it, it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually it takes over the game by itself. Easy pack one, pick one. Even if you aren't in pack one, pick one. If I was like in white, black, I would hate draft this card away just to stop my opponents from having it. That's how powerful this card is. I could be in other colors and I would take this card just so my opponents who are playing green couldn't have this. That's how good it is. It's not going to see playing Eternal format, sadly, though, because it's really easy to get rid of a 5/5 without self-protection when you don't have to rely just on creature damage generally. There's so many board clears and just spot removal. But in limited, where kill spells are going to be pretty limited, more or less, this card's amazing. Pack 1, pick one this. Pack 2, pick one this. Pack 3, pick one this. Take this card whenever you see it. Period. Doesn't matter if you're in the colors or not. Next, Tree Shaker Chimera. It is a 7 mana, 8/5. All creatures able to block the Chimera do so. And when the Chimera dies, you draw 3 cards. So it's kind of similar to the Boar, but unlike the Boar, you draw the cards when this thing dies. So if you're heavily in green, I'd take this. That's all there's really to say about it. I give it a B if you're in green, C if you're not. And that is all of our green stuff. Next, on to the multicolor. We have, first off, Acolyte of Affliction. It is a 4 mana, 2 colorless, black, green, 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, then you return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. This is pretty good, because even though I have been rating self-mill cards pretty poorly, the fact that this says you can choose a permanent you get back from your graveyard is just a very good rate. So let's say you do this and you mill a land and a Bronze Hide Lion. At least you get the Bronze Hide Lion back, you know? So it's pretty good. If you're in green, black, take this card. And this would be a card that I wouldn't mind if I was already in green and I'm thinking about another color. I wouldn't mind taking this and start hedging towards black as well. Or vice versa, if I was black, I'd start hedging towards green. I give it a B. Next, Allure of the Unknown. It is a 5 mana sorcery, 3 colorless, and Rakdos, or black-red, for the people who don't know what Rakdos is. Reveal the top 6 cards of your library. An opponent exiles a non-land card from among them, and then you put the rest into your hand. That opponent may cast the exile card without paying its mana cost. That is very dangerous. I can see this being played in Eternal formats, like Commander and stuff, where you're able to fix your deck that your opponent doesn't get any good options. But the fact that they can look 6 deep and they get to pick the best card and then cast it for free is kind of off-putting. Case in point, let's say you do give them, you get 5 cards, 5 cards, sure, but then they play like your Ashiok as if you're playing Grixis. That doesn't feel good. It feels really bad, in fact. In limited, I don't know how to rate this, because I feel like what's going to happen is your opponent's just going to take either the card that they don't want to play against or the best card from the 6. But in Eternal formats like Commander, where you can only have bad cards and you're purposely put bad cards in to get in the way, this card is going to be kind of fun to play around. It's going to be fun in a Chaos deck, you know? No, sorry. Next, we have our second Planeswalker, Ashiok, Nightmare Muse. So he, I think it's an it. I think it's supposed to be, I don't think that Ashiok has a confirmed gender. I think it's supposed to be transgender or something, or not have a gender, and or be androgynous, whatever. But I'll just say she because it's easier for me. She is a 5 mana Dimir color Planeswalker. Create when she enters the battlefield, or not when she enters the battlefield. She starts with a 5 loyalty, and her +1 is create a 2/3 blue and black nightmare creature token. With whenever this creature attacks or blocks, each opponent exiles the top 2 cards of the library. She has a -3 where she returns target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then that player exiles a card from their hand. And then a -7 where you may cast up to 3 face-up cards your opponent owns from exile without paying their mana cost. Yo. Back when the original Theros was a thing, Ashiok was used as a finisher in control decks. And I would not be surprised to see there are Dimir decks or even just Esper decks that start playing Ashiok doing what she did beforehand. And she's able to do her job pretty well. She's able to create things that protect herself. She's able to mess up your game plan by bouncing your permanents and then possibly forcing you to exile them. And then she's able to play your best cards against you. That's going to be scary. She's easily an A in limited though. She forces you to go black-blue. But, you know, going black-blue for the sake of how powerful this card is really good. Being able to create a creature each turn and just heavily mess with your opponent is just a really, really good rate. So, yeah. Easy A. Don't be surprised if you see control decks or Esper decks or Dimir decks or just decks in general play her in limit or in standard and stuff. Doubt she's going to see play in eternal formats, though. Other eternal formats. Next, Atris, Oracle of Half-Truths. He is a 4-mana, 2 colorless Dimir colors for a 3/2 with Menace. When the Oracle of Half-Truths enters the battlefield, target opponent looks at the top 3 cards of your library and separates them into 2 face-down piles. Into a face-down pile and a face-up pile. You put 1 pile into your hands, the other into your graveyard. That's interesting. So it's a mind gamey card. I'm not sure how to feel about this in limited. If you have ways to get cards out of your graveyard in limited, this is an easy snap pick, especially if you're in those colors. And in eternal formats where you're able to play from your graveyard, it just creates this interesting dynamic of, all right, are they really trying to give me only good cards or putting up these face cards to make me trick into not wanting the face down card? And I just really like that dynamic. And at the end of the day, if you're playing a graveyard a recursion deck, it doesn't really matter because you're going to be able to play those cards from the graveyard anyway, right? So yeah, good card. I give it a B if you're in the colors, C if you're not. It's not something I'd pack one, pick one, but if I'm in Dimir colors, I wouldn't mind taking this. Next, Bronze Hide Lion. It is a Selesnya color, green-white, 3/3, and you can tap Selesnya colors, green-white, to make it indestructible until end of turn. When it dies, return to the battlefield as an aura enchantment with enchant creature has its ability where you're able to tap 2 and make it indestructible until end of turn. I think this is supposed to be an homage to Fleecemane Lion from the original Theros, where it was a 2-mana 3/3 as well. And it had another mechanic back in Theros was the Monstrous mechanic, where you're able to turn, after having enough mana, you were able to turn Fleecemane into an indestructible hexproof creature. So this just has the indestructible tag for itself, and then it dies, and it makes other creatures indestructible. So that's pretty cool. Pretty good card. Easy pack one, pick one kind of card. I'd easily give this an A. You're forced to go into green-white, but for a 2-mana 3/3, which is already a good rate, and then a 2-mana 3/3 that has indestructible, that's amazing. Because you can use it both offensively and defensively. Really good, really good. So yeah, good card. Easy pack one, pick one kind of card. Next, our next Planeswalker, Calyx, Destiny's Hand. He is a 4-mana Planeswalker. 2 colorless, Selesnya colors, green-white. Starts off with 4 loyalty. It's +1. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put that card into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. It's -3. Exile target creature or enchantment you don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. That's interesting. So what it says is that it turns one of your enchantments you control into an O-ring, right? So it took me like a second to understand what it's saying, but it says that it turns like your god and it gives it an O-ring ability or a banishing light ability. So you exile the Decla, and until you get rid of Clothoisis, somehow Decla stays exiled under it. That's really cool. That's a really cool ability. I like that. And next, -7, return all enchantment creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is easily another pack one, pick one kind of Planeswalker. Because if you're ahead, you do its +1, where you get all these good enchantments. And again, with how many enchantment creatures there are, you're going to basically get something every turn. Its -3 is able to protect itself. If you even have a single enchantment creature, especially if you have an enchantment god, it just gets all the more amazing. And then it's -7 says if you're playing an enchantment-based deck and you have all these other enchantments in your graveyard, getting them all back at once is just a really good rate. So that's really good. Easy pack one, pick one, A+ card. Not A+, A card. Next, Decla, Crafter of Wonders. It is a colorless blue-red, or is it colors, for a 3 mana 2/4. You can tap it for 2 colors mana and spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or artifact abilities. Equipped creatures you control have flying and haste. This card isn't going to be that amazing in limited, but it's not going to be that amazing in standard either. However, in Commander, where there are stupid amounts of really cheap and easy, really strong artifacts that you can equip onto your creatures very easily for 0, 1, or 2 mana, which this guy helps with, he's going to be insane. He is going to be a good card that you can build around in Commander, but in Standard, I don't think there's enough equipment, and I don't think there's enough artifacts. There might be a cheeky, like, Tron deck that I once played against in Arena, but beyond that, I don't see the seeing play in Standard, or even Limited. I guess it's okay if you're already in those colors, but it wouldn't, like, snap pick this over others, because we haven't seen any artifacts yet. There might be good artifacts, we haven't gotten to them yet, but I doubt it, because this set seems to be focused around enchantments. And remember, equipped is not enchant. They are different. Equipped and enchant are different texts. Next, Devourer Memory, Dimir colors, or black-blue. It is a 2 mana 2/1. Whenever 1 or more cards are put into your graveyard from the library, Devourer Memory gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and it can't be blocked this turn. And then you can tap Dimir colors +1 more to put the top card of your library into your graveyard. I could see this being really stupid in constructed formats where you're able to just self-mill until you're able to one-shot your opponent. But in Limited, I'm not fully sure about it. But then again, milling 3, or spending 3 to get a 3/2, or not, let me change that. Spending 3 to mill 1 and get an unblockable 3/2 isn't that bad, because that's only 7 attacks to kill someone. And that might seem like a lot in Eternal formats, but in Limited, that's a pretty good rate. And in Eternal formats, you're going to be doing stupid things like, alright, I'm going to create this, I'm going to discard, I'm going to mill 18 cards through some kind of combo and one-shot you. Do you have the kill spell? No? Alright, I win. So we'll see. I might make a deck around this. We'll see how it works. Next, Dream Trawler. It is white, blue, colorless 2. So 6 mana for a flying lifelink 3/5. Creature Sphinx. Whenever you draw a card, Dream Trawler gets +1/+0 to end of turn. When Dream Trawler attacks, draw a card, discard a card, gain hexproof until end of turn, tap it. Yo. Well, Azorius got another finisher. There always seems to be like a big finisher that blue decks like to play, and I think this might be it. So at the end of the day, each time you attack with this, you're getting a 5/5's worth of stats. And then you can discard a card, a worthless card, to make it hexproof too. And because of how it's worded, let's say you're already attacking, and then your opponent wants to make target it with a spot removal. You can then discard a card. It's still attacking because it's already tapped and attacking, and just gains hexproof. This card's good. This card's really good. I wouldn't pack one. Well, actually, no, I probably would pack one, pick one this. Because flying lifelink 5/5 is a really good rate. And the fact that it has self-protection is pretty good. But I feel iffy about being forced into white-blue. It's a good card, though. It's a really good card. And it might even see playing Standard as a control finisher. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it play as a control finisher. I might have put back together my white-blue deck. My white-blue Flyers deck now. And use it as a top-end. Or maybe make it just a control deck and use it as a top-end finisher. We'll see. We'll see. Next, Enigmatic Incarnation. It is a 4 mana source enchantment. 4 mana enchantment, I'm sorry. Simic colors, or green-blue, and then 2 colorless. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another enchantment. If you do, search your library for a creature card with a converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrifice enchantment's converted mana cost. Put that onto the battlefield, shuffle your library. So it's Birthing Pod, but only for enchantments. And it's a May. Now remember, with how this is worded, it says enchantment. So you can use things like your enchantment creatures or your base enchantments. I wouldn't be surprised to see, with how good Birthing Pod was, I would not be surprised to see Well, I think the best part about that made Birthing Pod so good is that you're able to get it out turn 3 or toolbox it out. I'm not sure about this card. Especially, well, actually, no, it might be pretty good. We'll see. We'll see. I could see decks being built around this card, honestly. If for limited, I'd also rate it pretty highly because it's a May, so you can sacrifice your dinkier enchantment creatures or enchantments to start pumping out your bigger, better creatures. So yeah, I give it about a B, but you have to be hard focused at getting a lot of enchantments, though. You know. Next, Eutropia. I think I said that right. The Twice Favor. She is a 3-mana human wizard legendary creature. She is colorless, green, blue, or colorless Simic colors. Constellation. When enchantment enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and that creature gains flying until end of turn. That's pretty good. Especially if you're heavy into constellations or heavy into enchantment decks. Just being able to constantly make your creatures more or less unblockable because flying isn't all that prominent for what I see. That's a pretty good rate. I'd give it probably like a B. It forces you into Simic colors, but getting this out turn 3 and then turn 4 onward, or turn 4 onwards, just throwing out creature constellation after constellation or enchantment after enchantment to trigger constellation and make one of your creatures flying to just start beating them down is really good. So yeah, pick it a rate. She kind of forces you to go enchantment creature heavy, but that's not really a downside with how many enchantment creatures there are. Next, so this card is the card I was talking about when I named satyrs before. Gallia of the Endless Dance. She is Gruul colors, red-green. She has haste. Other satyrs you control get +1/+1 and have haste. When you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may discard a card at random, and then you draw 2 cards. There's no success like excess. I really like this art because that human is fucked. Both literally and figuratively. Satyrs are all about debauchery and just having the time of their lives. So that human is literally going to get fucked. Literally fucked. Though, and he clearly is like, oh god, I'm not gonna survive out of this. It's okay. You know a better example of what I'm saying? Death by Snoo. That's what's gonna happen to this guy. But yeah, even if you don't get a lot of satyrs in your deck, she's at least gonna be decent as a creature because 2/2 for 2 that has haste is pretty good. And if you have enough creatures, even if they aren't satyrs, you can start rummaging, I guess. Sure, you're discarding a card at a random, and every once in a while you're going to discard a card you don't want, but drawing 2 cards for 1 is an amazing rate. So, pretty good card. She is a B. She forces you to go green-red and go aggro, but she's still a B at the end of the day. Next, Haktos, the Unscarred. It is a 4-mana Boros colors, though. 2 red, 2 white for a 6/1. Now, most of the time, that wouldn't be an amazing stat line. However, he attacks each combat if able. And as he enters the battlefield, you choose 2, 3, or 4 at random. He has protection from each other converted mana cost, other than the chosen number. So if you roll a dice and you roll 2, that means it has protection from everything that has a converted mana cost of 3 or 4. If you roll the dice and you get 3, it has protection from things that have 2 or 4 mana cost. It's not. There will be times where your opponent has a 1/1, like that 1 with Dead Toucher, and it's immediately able to block. But other times, when your opponent only has 2 drops and 3 drops, and you're attacking with this 6/1, and you hit them 4 times, you instantly win, it's going to feel really good. And honestly, though, I give it a B. Because while at times it's gonna be in the perfect board state to just instantly win you the game, the fact that you're forced to attack each combat, there will be many times, or not many times, but there will be times where it's just like, all right, I attack with my 6/1, I block with my Moss Viper. Oh, well, okay then. But you know, when it's not happening, it feels really good. So yeah, I'll give it a B. Next, Hero of the Nyxborn. It is a colorless red-white or colorless Boros colors for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier token. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Nyxborn, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Again, I made my statements about how I feel about this, but this one's better because it enters the battlefield as with 3/3 worth of stats, so not bad. Next, Clothios, God of Destiny. Oh right, I should rate that. I'm gonna give this one a B because it comes in this battlefield with the 3/3 worth of stats. Yeah, Clothos, God of Destiny. It is a colorless red-green. It is our multicolor or our red-green god. It is indestructible. Now, the dual color gods need a devotion of at least 7, but it can be from red and or green. So if you have 7 red, 7 green, or a mix of red and green up to 7, it's a creature. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, exile top card from your graveyard. If it was a land, add a mountain or forest to your mana. Otherwise, gain 2 life, and Klothos deals 2 damage to each opponent. This is pretty good, honestly, because you play this turn 3. You're going to be exiling cards from your graveyard. Sure, you don't have a choice on whether you do it or not, but having a shock on the things in your graveyard, especially if you don't have ways to recur them, is pretty good, especially since you shock and heal from it. This is another one, just like every other god so far, this is easily a pack one, pick one card, because it's so easily playable, and its usefulness starts immediately. Either you're getting mana or you're getting shocks, which is good either way. Next, Cosec, I think that's how you say it. Cosec, Titans of Death's Hunger. It is Gruul colors. He is a 2 mana 6/6. However, when Cosec enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it's escaped. When Cosec enters the battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card, then each opponent who didn't discard a card this way loses 3 life. And then he escapes for 4 mana, black, black, red, red, exile 5 of the cards from your graveyard. So, you play this, you initially play this for 2 mana, and then if you have enough cards in your graveyard, you can escape it for 4 mana and you get a 6/6 again. And each time it enters the battlefield or attacks, your opponent discards a card. And if they can't, then they lose. And then if they didn't discard a card that's a non-land, they lose 3 life. Honestly, this isn't all that great. It's not amazing. It might see play in Commander where it can kind of abuse jumping in and out of the graveyard pretty easily. I can see this seeing play in Commander decks where it's really easy to do reanimation shenanigans and utterly discard your opponent's hands. But in Standard, 2 mana to discard a card that you don't get to control with and discard, and then having to do it again for 4 mana isn't that amazing as a rate. Thought Erasure does its job better. Duress does its job better. Burgling Rat doesn't have you jump through hoops. So this is only okay. I wouldn't pack one pick on this, but if I'm in Rakdos colors, I'd pick it. I give it a C. That's it. Next, Chronos, Hound of Athreos. It is a 3 mana, 1 colorless, white, black, or Orzhov colors for a 3/3 with Vigilance, Menace, and Lifelink. So it's implying that each head does something different. Creatures, cards, and graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from graveyards. Hello, hoser. I can see this being played in sideboards in Standard. I can see this being played in sideboards in Eternal formats. I can see this being a Commander card. This is just another Death and Taxes card of another way to hose graveyard decks, which Death and Taxes cards love doing. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty good. Next. Oh, wait, if I were to rate it, I'd probably give it like a B. Actually, no, I'd actually grade it an A because you have 3 really good keywords. You have Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink, and then it hoses Escape. Yeah, that's really good. So I give it an A. Next, Mischievous Chimera. It is a blue-red. So is it colors for a flying 2/2. Already amazing rates. And whenever you cast your first spell during your opponent's turn, deal 1 damage to each opponent and you scry 1. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Because at the end of the day, you either have an aggressive creature that's flying, or you have ways to just burn your opponent. I can see this honestly seeing play in the flash decks. Other cards other flash cards or play cards on your opponent's turns card, I was kind of iffy on. But this card, more so than any, the fact that it's dealing damage and it's helping you pick through your library for the good cards is really good. So, good in limited. I give it like a B in limited. And expect to see, is it flash decks? Yay. Anyway, next, Poconos Unchained. Poconos Unchained. Poconos was a major green card in the last Theros block. It was green's best way of dealing with creatures because it fought a lot of creatures at once. And it was a big, beefy Hydra. I think it was like a 4 mana 6/6. And they were able to make it monstrous to fight a lot of creatures. Sure, it tended to kill itself when it did that, but still. Oh, look, and it has fight again. So it is a 4 mana 0/0. However, it enters the battlefield with 6 +1/+1 counters and escapes with 12 +1/+1 counters. If damage would be dealt to Poconos while it has a +1/+1 counter on it, prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+1 counters from it. So just like the other one that was really meant to fight and die, this one's meant to fight and slowly die to kill your opponent's creatures. So that's pretty good. That's really good, honestly. I'd still give this an A, because just being able to fight your opponent's creatures and basically kill the ones that are biggest threats to you as the game goes on is just a really good rate. Sure, it gets harder to fight as the game goes on, but playing this turn 4 and having a 6/6 and then killing your opponent's creatures one by one is really good. And then if you get late enough into the game, having a 12/12 to fight again or just kill your opponent is also good. So I give this an A. Next, Rise to Glory. It is a 5 mana sorcery. It has 3 colors, white, black. Oh, look, it's Daxos. So Daxos died in Theros, and now he's taken up his mask to become back alive. Or is he saved by God? I'll read the lore and I'll find out later. You choose one or both. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Return target aura from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is easily a B, because if you even have a few auras, and you're always going to have creatures in your graveyard at some point. So, yeah, this is really good. This is pretty goddamn good. I'd honestly give this a B, especially if you're into these colors, because getting back a creature for 5 mana on top of an aura for 5 mana was already good back in War of the Spark. It'll also be good here. I wouldn't be surprised to see this seeing play in Standard as well in some kind of reanimation deck. Next. Sona, Captain of Phyllis. She is a colorless green-white human legendary creature, human soldier, 2/2. When she enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an aura from them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. That's pretty good, especially if you have a lot of auras. If you're going like aura focus, which Selesnya has been known to do, this is a pretty good rate. I'd give this a B, but you were forced to go a lot of auras to make full use of her ability. But if you even like have 1 or 2 auras and you only get 2 creatures, that's still a really good rate. Next, Slaughter Priest of Mogis. He is a 2 mana 2/2, Rakdos colors. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, this creature gets +2/+0 to end a turn. Tap 2, sacrifice another creature or enchantment. Slaughter Priest of Mogis gains first strike until end of turn. So I have the same feelings I have about Satyr, but I feel like this is a better Satyr, because it gains first strike. You don't tap it to do this, and you're able to sacrifice your dinky creatures and enchantments to do this. So all in all, just a really good creature for limited. Standard is not going to see any play though, unless there's some Minotaur deck. Who knows? Next, Staggering Insight. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and lifelink, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it's Curious Obsession with lifelink. Fun fact: there is an enchantment called lifelink, which gave your opponent's creature lifelink. So it is Curious Obsession and lifelink without the downside of needing to attack each turn. But every single time you do attack and you do combat damage, you draw. So don't be surprised if there's a blue-white Flyers deck or blue-white Evasion deck this set, just like there was back in Dominaria. Yay! I'm honestly thinking about putting back together my blue-white Flyers now. Between that Eagle that makes all your Flyers get +1/+1, and then you have Spectral Sailor, and you have that Lone Unicorn and stuff, there probably is a blue-white Flyers deck. Or I can play blue-white Spirits in Historic. We'll see. Next, Uru, Titan of Nature's Wrath. So this is a 3 mana Titan, or 3 mana Elder Giant. Colorless green-blue, and it's a 6/6. And it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it, just like the other Titan, unless it's escaped. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life and draw a card. And you may put a land card from your hand onto your battlefield. Ooh, that's pretty good. Even without, it's a growth spurt with a healing salve attached to it. That's pretty good, all things considered, because this one's far better than the other one, because this puts you at a card advantage and a life advantage as well as a ramping advantage. And I can see this being played alongside Growth Spurt, even more so than Omen of Nature, or whatever one the green Omen was. So yeah, good card. And then if you get late enough into the game, you can exile cards and get a 6/6 back, on top of getting 3 more life and drawing a card. I can see this being playing Standard. Eternal formats, maybe, Not fully sure. Is there like a ramp deck that needs bigger creatures or able to churn through their graveyards fast in Eternal formats? I'm not fully sure. But Next, Warden of the Chained. It is a 3-mana 4/4 with trample. When Warden of the Chained, and it can't attack unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. This is honestly pretty good even outright. It's a 4-mana 4/4. It's a 3-mana 4/4. Sure, it can't attack unless it has friends, but at the end of the day, it's a really good blocker until you get your other 4/4. So yeah, easy pick. I give it a B. I'd also give this one an A. And then we have pretty versions of their cards. And I think the last card that we can actually review that isn't part of a special set is Theros Shroud Veiled. So the other version of this was a 3-mana white-black. 3-mana white-black. Was a 3-mana colorless white-black card that said every single time one of your non-token creatures died, put it back into your hand unless your opponent paid 3. So that was pretty good. What does this one do? It is a 6-mana 4/7 with its devotion needing to be white-black of 7 for making it a creature. At the beginning of your end step, put a coin counter on another target creature, and whenever a creature with a coin counter on it dies or is put in exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. Oh, that's scary. So you put coins on all these creatures, even your opponent's creatures, and then you board wipe, and then they're all yours. Oh, even better yet, since it says put into exile, if you put it on a god and then you exile the god, you get it back anyway. Yo, that's scary. This could be a very pretty powerful in control decks, or even mid-range decks in standard. I doubt it's going to see play over the other Theros, but who knows. And finally, we have the 2 cards which I believe are only going to be in the like playtesting sets, or the sets that they give to like get used to MTG for the set. You have a 6-mana Planeswalker Ashiok, Sculptor of Fears. She enters the battlefield with 4 loyalty. Her +2 is draw a card. Each player puts the top 2 cards of the library into their graveyard. Meh. -5. Put target creature card from your graveyard from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That's good, but the fact that she can't immediately do it kind of hurts her viability. And then -11, gain control of all creatures target opponent controls. That's honestly meh. Because if this had -4, this would be better. But the fact that you have to get this out for 6 mana and then have to do this at least once to start doing this kind of hurts its viability. So it's honestly kind of bad. Next, Ashiok's Forerunner. It is a 5-mana, 3 colorless, Dimir colors, or blue-black for a 3/3. Flash. When it enters the battlefield, you may search for this Planeswalker from your library or your graveyard, and then you can shuffle your library if you do this. If you search your library this way. Neat. Okay then. So yeah, honestly, I wasn't feeling the set at first, but now that I'm sitting down and looking at these cards, I'm getting more and more excited. But I think we also don't have time to actually also do artifacts. So let's look at the artifacts that are in this set. Our first artifact is Altar of the Pantheon. It's a 3-mana. I don't really say any colors because it's just 3 mana. Your devotion to each color and each combination of colors is increased by 1. Tap it, add 1 mana of any color. If you control a god, a demigod, or a legendary enchantment, you gain a life. That's not bad. So this is a mana rock that also helps with your devotion and can potentially gain you life. That's a pretty good mana rock for at least limited, and a pretty good mana rock for standard. I don't think this is going to be... This might see playing Commander as a decent mana rock, as just another mana rock, right? Actually, no, this could definitely see playing Commander, but other internal formats, there's better mana rocks. But in Standard, Limited, and in Commander, this is pretty good. I give this about a B, because mana rocks are always good. Just getting able to accelerate your mana is always good. Next, Bronze Sword. It is a casting cost of 1, an equipped creature gets +2/+0, but it equips for 3. This is honestly kind of bad. If it said equipped for 2, it'd be better, but the fact that you had to get it out turn 1 and as soon as you can play it is turn 3 is kind of meh. So I'll give it like a... I'll give it like a C, or like a D. Especially since it doesn't also buff your defenses. It's not that good. Now this next card though, Entrancing Liar, is that how you say it? It is a 3-mana artifact. You may choose not to untap it, and then you can tap X and tap it to tap target creature with power X or less. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap phase as long as this Lyre remains tapped. So this is, for all intents and purposes, a better Icy Manipulator, because you can tap it and keep that creature tapped. Oh, that's 6/6, and the fact that it's on an artifact that you don't really care about once it's doing its tapping is just utterly amazing. This is easily, I would easily and not feel bad taking this over other cards in a pack. If there's nothing else to take in a pack, well, I wouldn't take this over the A cards like Iron Scale Hydra, but if there was nothing else outright amazing, I would easily snatch up this card, because it hardcore hoses. This is basically removal in every color. Keeping a creature just tapped permanently like that is so goddamn good. Next, Mirror Shield. It's 2 mana. Equipped creature gets +0/+2 and has hexproof. And whenever a creature with Death Touch blocks or becomes blocked by this creature, destroy that creature. This isn't that good. If it said Flash, it'd be better. But the fact that it's only good against Death Touch creatures, and Death Touch isn't all that prominent. I think we've only seen it on like 2 or 3 cards this entire set so far. And all it does, and beyond that, it's meh. Okay, yeah, it also gets hexproof, sure, but there's better ways to give creatures hexproof, as we saw in white. I guess giving creatures hexproof for 2 mana consistently is pretty good, but the rest part is just bad. There's better ways to give hexproof in every other format. I guess you'll take one of these and not feel too bad about giving your best creature hexproof. Beyond that, it's not that amazing. Next, I give it like a C. Nyx Lotus, 4 mana, another Lotus card, enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it, choose a color. Add an amount of mana to that color equal to your devotion to that color. So this is going to go in commander decks. This is going to go in devotion decks. This card is going to be really good. I give this I only give it a C for limited, but take these up because these things are going to be worth a decent bit, because they're going to be wanted by commander and devotion players. So yeah, I'd money draft this card. Next, Shadow Spear. It's a 1 mana equipment. That's already pretty good. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. Oh, it's the spear that was used to. Yeah, this is the corrupted Heliod spear. Neat. This is the spear. Funnily enough. Oh, you know what this is? Back in this is the corrupted Heliod spear. Elspeth got a sword from Heliod to go beat Xenagos, right? To go beat Xenagos in Theros. And this is the spear that he used to betray her after she killed Xenagos. And she apparently pulled it out of her, and it's the Shadow Spear. So, +1/+1, and has trample and lifelink. That's already really good. Just 3 good keywords. And on top of that, you can tap it, and it makes your opponent loses hexproof and indestructible on their permanents. I.e., she's using it to kill gods. This is such a flavor win, on top of the fact this is just an amazing card. This is easily a pack 1, pick 1 card, because if you have any creatures at all, this viability of the spear just shoots up. And it's only equipped for 2, and then it has this really amazing ability that helps you get rid of the gods. Easy pack 1, pick 1 card. Even if you don't have that many. Actually, no. Yeah, this is just a pack 1, pick 1 card. There's nothing else to say about this. This might see you play in Eternal formats to help hose hexproof indestructible creatures. And yeah, I don't be surprised to see this play also in Standard. Next, Soul Guide Lantern. It is a 1 mana artifact. When Soul Guide Lantern is the battlefield, exile target card from your graveyard. You can tap it to sacrifice this lantern and exile each opponent's graveyard, and then you can tap it, sack it to draw a card. This is pretty good too. This is a way to hate on graveyard like every set gets. This is the graveyard hate card, which is not bad at all. I give it like I'm only going to give it a B or a C plus, or B minus or C plus, just because there could be so much things to deal with a graveyard. And at the end of the day, even if your opponent isn't playing with the graveyard, you can at the very least use it to draw a card. So it's 1 mana, or it's 2 mana to draw a card at the very least, if it's not being used to get rid of the graveyard. So I'll give it a B minus or C plus. Next, Thaumaturge's Familiar. It is a 3 mana 1/3 flyer. When it is a battlefield, scry 1. It's not that great. I give it a C. Only take it if you have need for more playables, but beyond that, it's not that great. Next, Thundering Chariot. It is a 4 mana vehicle. It has first strike, trample, and haste, and it's a crew for 1. That's a pretty good rate. And the fact that it has trample and haste and first strike, and you only need a crew of 1 to use it, this is gonna be pretty good. And limited. It's not gonna see playing Eternal formats, but in limited, I wouldn't feel bad having this. I give it a B because it goes in literally every deck and it's really easy to use, and it's immediately able to make a threat because it has all these really good keywords. Next, Traveler's Amulet. You can sack it for 1 and search your library for a basic land and reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your library. This isn't bad. The fact that you're able to use it to thin your library and help you get your other colors of mana is really good. I give it a C+. And if you need it to help, if you're playing like bigger, beefier creatures, this is a really good card to take to help you just thin your library and get you the lands you need. But beyond that, it's only average in every other deck. It's not going to see play in Eternal formats though. And last but not least, we have, we'll also get to the lands. Last but not least, when it comes to artifacts, we have Wings of Hubris. Equipped your creature has flying, and it costs 2 to cast. Sacrifice Wings of Hubris. Equipped your creature can't be blocked this turn. Sacrifice at the beginning of your next end step. Equipped for 1. This is really good. You remember the flying and contraption thing from Ixalan? This is that. Now remember, you don't need to do the sacrifice part. If you need just outright pure evasion to get that final swing of damage in, you could do the sacrifice. Sure, you lose your creature after that, but you'll only be doing the sacrifice part to get that last bit of damage secured. But being able to give your creatures flying for effectively 1 mana is really, really good. And then at the very end of the day, if you need that one final take of damage and your opponent has flyers, you can make your last creature unblockable and just swing in for the win. Alright, that is the colorless artifacts. Finally, we have the lands. Field of Ruin. It is a colorless land. You can tap it to create 1 mana of 1 colorless mana. Or you can tap it and tap 2 mana to sacrifice this land and destroy non-basic land an opponent controls. Then each player gets a basic land instead, and then shuffles the library. This is really good in standard because it's just another ways to hose those big problem lands like the next land, Labyrinth of Skyphos. And sometimes you'll be wanting to get, Unknown Shores or get the temples. So yeah, that's really good. We already looked over Labyrinth of Skyphos. The temples, we have a Gruul Temple, a Dimir Temple, an Azorius Temple, our Rakdos Temple, and our Selesnya Temple. So what temples do is they enter the battlefield tapped, but when they enter the battlefield, you get to scry 1. Play these if you are playing these colors. I wouldn't pack one, pick one of these, but if you are playing these colors and they happen to get passed to you, you take them. There's nothing really else to say about them. You'll see these play in standard just because they're really good ways of mana fixing and library fixing. And last but not least, Unknown Shores. This is also a reprint. You can tap it normally for 1 color of any mana, or you can tap it and tap 1 mana to mana fix. And that's about it. And finally, we have these amazingly beautiful basic lands. I might buy full playsets of all of these because these are so goddamn pretty. But that is it. That is all of Theros Beyond Death spoils. So when I came into this, I wasn't that excited, but now that I've sat down and looked at these cards, like one by one, I'm actually getting deck ideas. Like I want to play with Thasia's Oracle, I want to play with these gods, I want to see if there's like a Satyr deck maybe, so I'm actually kind of hyped now. But for right now, that's it. For anyone out there watching and seen through all the other 2 episodes, thank you. I want you to have a good morning, evening, day, or night, wherever you're at. But for right now, I'm out. Later.